Good evening, everybody. I'm preparing for our faculty meeting, and I just wanted to pose a few questions to you today, this evening, rather, and have you have some time to think about how education has changed as we start this new year together. What are your expectations? What are my expectations as a teacher? And what does other people think your expectations should be? And instead of having me tell you this at a faculty meeting, I thought I'd rather share this with you, and then we can discuss some of these questions and some of this content later on during our in-service days. So it's not going to be just me talking to you. I'd like for you to get out a piece of paper and a pencil, or pull up a Word document and jot some notes as we go through this little exercise. I will try to make it brief, and I would hope that you come prepared to the meeting with some of your own ideas. If you would like where I found my resources, I'm going to give you some to look at and to research, but if you would like that, please email me or send me a note, and I will be happy to share those resources with you. So let's get started. I want you to think, as you look at school today, I would like for you to think about what it looks like to you and use your own experiences. So as you've gone through school and as you became a teacher, what does school look like to you today? Go ahead and jot some notes down. I'm going to give you some acronyms that I hope you are familiar with. And this is some of the things that I wrote. And how do we balance that with our everyday teaching and learning? So NESA, the Nebraska State Accountability System. AQuest, we'll get to that later. AQUESTT. MAPS. State funding. Teacher certification. State standards. State reporting. And how does that lead us then to the federal requirements that we see today, such as NCLB, AYP, highly qualified teachers, as well as standardized testing? So as you're aware, NESA is the Nebraska State Accountability System, and we use that and we test kids in many grade levels, 4, 8, and 11, math, reading, science. If you're not familiar with those standards, they're on the Nebraska Department of Education website. But think about all the things that we have to prepare kids to be able to do. And I have 2 kids in public school right now, a junior and a senior, and I just received their NESA test. My juniors last year just received his test scores in the mail today, in fact. We have AQuest coming down the pike. We'll talk more about that. We have measures of academic progress, MAPS testing. We have the state that helps to decide how funding is working out for all of us. Each year they release the mechanism in which funding is organized. So I hope you're taking these notes. Write them down. This is very interesting. Teachers are certified. How did you get certified? How did that look? And then we think about NCLB, No Child Left Behind, and how we are, as a state, starting to compare our schools because of NCLB and AYP. And we have many more acronyms that we could go through. So that's my picture of school, and what's yours? And bring that with you to the faculty meeting. Write down some of your thoughts. Let's go back then and compare that with school in the early 1800s. So I wasn't born then, and I'm sure many of you were born during that time. But in the 1800s, let's talk about that. So think about what school might have looked like in the 1800s. And I want you to think about, as we've just discussed, how that looks like, how it looked like then versus now. In 1837, Horace Mann was elected to the Secretary of the Board of Education of the state of Massachusetts. And he had this idea of a common schooling where schools would teach moral values, the teachers would be highly qualified, you would teach physical and health education, as well as religious education. And his beliefs were not necessarily his beliefs, but what he advocated for, and also for the government, was common schooling, state mandated control, a state school reporting that he would write. I believe he wrote 12 of them. And the schools would be run by the State Board of Education. He felt that schools could achieve a huge social change. There's a lot of research about why he felt that way, but one of the big reasons is because of the there's a lot of industrial type workers out there, and no one was getting trained for these higher jobs like being a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever like that. And so he believed that education could drive that kind of change. So think for a minute about what we've just talked about, the history of the schooling in the early 1800s, and that was just a brief synopsis. We might get into that discussion later, and how that looked back then, and how that looks today when we talk about NISA and AQuest and all those other things that we discussed earlier. And take a few minutes just to think about that. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds. Now, moving forward, when we talk about education and we talk about schooling and what that looks like now versus back then, what was required of you to become a teacher? As a educational leader, what is it that we look for in quality educators? And so I'm going to give you a list again from some research that I've done, and this is from this list is from Bigham, Lively, and Toole, and it was published in 2014. And it's this idea of teacher expectations of teacher candidates by principals and cooperating teachers. So the first one, passion for teaching. Do you have a passion for teaching? Interest and competence. Are you interested in what you're teaching, and are you competent? Current pedagogy and content knowledge. Specific examples of classroom management. Growth mindset. Do you have a growth mindset? And if you don't know what that means, I would ask you to read The Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. You can find that book online. Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset. Understanding differentiated instruction. Ability to build relationships, not only with other faculty members, but also with students. Appropriate level of confidence about what you're teaching. Knowledge of the curriculum. Your temperament, your personality, and your character. Your communication skills, both oral, written. Your coursework and your experience. Now we can get that through your university, obviously. Your range of experience in education. Your ability to plan. And finally, your ability to motivate and engage all students. That was a list that was created by Bigham, Lively, and Toole, and that was published in 2014. I circled my top 3 or 4 of what I would look for when I'm interviewing a highly qualified teacher, or what I think should be a highly qualified teacher. Passion. Are you passionate not only about teaching, but about students and about learning? Do you have a growth mindset? Can you build relationships with everybody in the school, with other faculty members, your students, the janitor, the bus driver, the cooks, the nurse? Start thinking about the staff that are in your school. Can you build relationships with those people? Your communication skills. And then finally, are you motivated internally? And I hope you are. And then finally, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about AQuest. Please write this website down. When the video is over, please go and view it and look through it and read a little bit about it. You'll find 6 tenets, aquest.com. AQuest is Nebraska Department of Education's newly identified, just I believe in 2015, accountability system. And AQuest, A-Q-U-E-S-S-T, means accountability. That's the A, accountability for quality, the Q, quality education system today and tomorrow. They've done a lot of work with this. And if you go to that website, you will see the 6 tenets. One of those tenets, again, talking about teacher educators and educator effectiveness, but one of those tenets is specifically named educator effectiveness. And again, they list the Nebraska Teacher and Principal Performance Framework as these are the things that educators, leaders, educational leaders should look for in teacher candidates. Number 1, foundational knowledge, pedagogy, standards, planning and preparation, which supports the growth of student learning. The learning environment, active student engagement. Instructional strategies. Are the strategies that you use in your classroom, are they effective? Assessment, both formative and summative, and use multiple methods of assessing your students where they're at and whether or not they're learning the content. Professionalism, ethical and responsible. And I would even go on to say not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. How do you conduct yourself in your community, in your school, wherever you're at? How do you conduct yourself? And finally, vision and collaboration. What is your vision? What is the district's vision? What's the mission? I would encourage you to look those things up. So, recap. The first question: how does school look today? And we went over some thoughts. What did it look like in the early 1800s? And look up Horace Mann. What are the requirements of teachers? And finally, check out aquest.com. We'll see you at the faculty meeting. Please have your notes with you. Please share them with your teaching neighbor or within your department. Thank you for watching this video.